Story 4. The Forgotten Inmate. The man they couldn't execute. The switch clacked down, the room went white, and nothing happened. The witnesses flinched at the flash, the glass hummed. The executioner's hand trembled on the lever. A second ticked by. Then another. The smell everyone braced for never came. The man in the chair, thin, calm, eyes half closed as if he were listening for a faraway train, did not convulse, did not even blink. The overhead lights brightened, then dimmed, then steadied, as if the prison itself were taking a breath. Somewhere beyond the viewing window, a fuse popped like a knuckle crack. Power fault, someone whispered. But the gauges on the wall were normal. The meters said the current was flowing. The nurse's hand hovered over the stethoscope pressed to the prisoner's chest. She looked up, pale. "He's steady," she said. "He's fine." From the chair, the man spoke for the first time that morning. His voice was barely above a breath. "I told you," he said. "Not today." The warden's jaw clenched. Reset. They did, 3 times. The meters said one thing, the body said another, and by the third attempt, the prison chaplain had stepped back from the glass and pressed both palms to his eyes, like he could blot out what wasn't happening. On the official record of Briar Hollow State Penitentiary, March 12, 1963, the entry reads, "Execution postponed due to equipment failure." Unofficially, the story that left that room, on the lips of a nurse, a guard, a clerk who couldn't stop shaking, was simpler and heavier. They couldn't execute him. His name was entered as Hale Thomas R. in the ledger, though later that would be called into question. The ink on that line is darker than the entries above and below, as if someone traced over it. On the medical form, the height and weight are blank. On the intake photograph, the prisoner's eyes ref dial. Like the bulb, 2 small mirrors, no detail. The man who sat in the chair that morning smiled once, just barely, when the chaplain said his prayer. "Save it," he said. "You'll need it." They wheeled him out of the chamber 10 minutes after the first attempt. The warden signed a delay order and walked away without looking anyone in the eye. 3 days later, the state issued a statement about procedural review. The newspapers ran one small paragraph. Then they ran something else. Weather, baseball, a factory strike. That was how things worked then. When a thing didn't fit, you put something ordinary over it and hoped the shape would disappear. It didn't. What followed is scattered across old boxes and older memories. A memo from the Department of Corrections ordering a second attempt when the chair is certified. A set of repair logs showing nothing was wrong. A note in a nurse's hand that simply reads, "He listens to the walls." The second attempt happened 2 weeks later. The witnesses were different. The warden was the same. The chair was the same. The man in it, if you believe the guards in the corner of the room, looked rested like the past 14 days had been a vacation. The switch went down. The world held its breath. The same bright hum, the same settling quiet, the same impossible result. The meters recorded current. The human being did not. "He's not resisting," the chaplain said later when someone asked him what he saw. "That's the worst part. He's not fighting anything. He's waiting." After the second failure, the state stopped inviting witnesses. They changed the paperwork. They called it internal proceeding. A week later, the chair was moved back to storage and a different method was approved. The men who built the gallows did their work in silence, the way men do when they're making a tool, not a symbol. In the files, there's a requisition order for new rope and a line item for a carpenter from town. There's also a receipt for 6 padlocks and a steel hasp. The third attempt took place at dawn. You can read the steps in the guard captain's neat block letters. March to platform, hood applied, prayer declined, signal given. You can also read what happened next in a margin note, added in a different pen, a different hand. Years later, did not fall. The trap swung, the rope went taut, the beam creaked, and the man on the end of it turned his head, slow as a clock, towards the captain and said, through the hood, clear enough to hear, "You hear that?" "Hear what?" the captain said, against his better sense. "Breathing," the man said. That detail is not in the official report. It exists in 3 places: a letter the captain never mailed, a story a guard told his son years later at a kitchen table, and the look on the chaplain's face in a photograph taken that afternoon. Lips pressed thin, eyes red, like someone who hadn't slept and didn't plan to. After that, everything changed. There is no 4th attempt on paper. There is instead an order labelled administrative segregation and a cell number that doesn't appear on any blueprint. E-row, sub-level, door 6. The crude map drawn on the back of a requisition form shows a hallway under the main cell blocks, a turn past the laundry chutes, a short run of steps that never made it into the fire plan. Someone scratched a note beside the little square, marked 6. Keep the key upstairs. From that point, the man they couldn't execute disappears from the record and reappears only as a set of effects. A tray returned untouched, a cup of water taken at midnight and not before. A voice heard once a week asking, in the same calm tone, for a newspaper that was never delivered. You'd swear he didn't sleep, one night officer said later. You'd swear he was listening. To what? The walls? The building? The way old places sigh when the temperature drops? Ask 10 people who worked there in the 60s and 70s and they'll give you 10 hands. Words, all of them quiet, none of them helpful. The oldest guard, the one everyone called Frank because no one could remember if that was his first or last name, always rubbed 2 knuckles together when he told it. Down in E-row, he said, you could hear somebody counting. Just the last 3 numbers. Tap, tap, tap. Like a heartbeat that forgot how. By the late 70s, Briar Hollow was shrinking. The state built a newer facility 2 counties over with better lighting and worse paint. Budgets got tight. Wings got closed. E-row went dark. According to a typed memo from 1978, sub-level door 6 was sealed pending demolition. The key was clipped to a tag and filed in a red box marked Archive. A month later, the box was gone. The archive clerk retired and moved to Florida. And that might have been the end. An administrative ghost, a set of rumours trapped under concrete. If not for a historian in 2019 who liked to read ledgers for fun. Her name was Shannon Pierce, and she spent her Saturdays in county basements, squinting at spidery ink. She was looking for early census records when she found a thin folder, misfiled under sanitation. Inside there were 2 things. A memo ordering E-row, sub-level, door 6 sealed, and a Polaroid of the door itself. The photo is washed in the flash the way Polaroids are. You can see the chalk mark 6 on the rust. You can also see, if you tilt it to the light, 3 shallow dimples in the metal, spaced like knuckles. Tap, tap, tap. Shannon didn't scare easily. She taught night classes and drove I-80 during blizzards. Still, she told a friend later that the photo picture made her feel watched, which is not the kind of thing historians like to admit out loud. She packed up, signed out the folder, and drove to the old prison, which by then was just a fenced hulk on a hill, all its reasons stripped away. There is security footage of Shannon at the gate asking, the caretaker for 10 minutes in the records room. There is phone video of her walking down a concrete corridor with her flashlight held tight to her chest. There is audio from her recorder, she always carried one, of her reading the memo into the air like it was a spell. E-row, sub-level, door 6, sealed, key to remain upstairs. Then there is a sound. 3 hollow knocks from somewhere ahead. Not close, not far. Tap, tap, tap. Shannon stops in the video. You can watch her shoulders rise and fall once, like someone measuring the weight of a choice. Old pipes, she says into the recorder, as if the building could hear her explain it away. She keeps walking. The camera shakes when she takes the stairs. The beam finds a wall of fresh concrete, newer at least, than the walls around it. In the center, a patch of different color, the size of a door, the seam of a weld faint under bad spackle. On the audio, her voice goes soft. If this was sealed in 78, why is the patch colder? In the video, you can see her breath. It's July. She reaches out and touches the seam. The recorder picks up a tiny sound, the kind your fingers make when you run them over something that used to be a hinge. Then from inside the wall, or under it, or behind it, or in the part of your brain that knows when our house is settling wrong, comes another knock. Tap, tap, tap. Shannon takes a half step back and hits the side of the stair rail. The flashlight skitters, jerks, catches the corner of a steel hasp set crooked under paint, so caked with years it looks like a scar. There are fresh nicks on the edge of it. Not many. A few. The kind metal makes when it's worked against. "Hello?" she says, because that is what people say to darkness when they want it to behave. There is no answer. There is also no air moving. And yet the loose tag on her keyring turns and clicks once, like something exhaled. You can hear her laugh. A nervous, regular person sound, not a movie shriek. "I'm leaving," she tells the recorder. "I'm leaving now." In the footage she reaches for the flashlight, turns and stops. Because where there was a smooth patch of grey a moment before, there is now a line, a hairline, a thin shadow around the shape of a door, as if something on the other side just leaned its weight against the seam and reminded the wall what it used to be. In the video, the frame tilts. The flashlight falls again. The beam rolls across the concrete and catches 3 small crescents in the dust near the base of the patch, like fingertips pressed once, then lifted. The audio picks up breathing that isn't hers. Not fast, not panicked. Just steady, patient, a metronome in the dark. Upstairs, the caretaker calls out, "Everything good down there?" His voice echoes down the stairwell and breaks into little pieces against the cinder block. Shannon lifts the recorder. You can hear her swallow. "There's a draft," she says, because that is easier to say than there is a door remembering itself in front of me. She steps back again, slow. The line in the wall does not widen. It stays a line, no more, no less. The breathing stops. The silence that follows is the kind you get in basements just before the light bulb goes. "Okay," she tells herself. "Okay." She starts up the stairs. Halfway to the landing, the recorder captures the soft, distinct sound of metal moving under paint. Faint, rusty, a hinge thinking. Not opening, not yet. Thinking. At the top of the stairs, she turns once. Just once, because people always turn once. The beam paints the patch. It is smooth again. The line is gone. But on the concrete at the threshold, under where a door would sweep if a door existed, there is a smear of dust pulled inward. The clean half-moon shape a door makes when it's opened an inch and closed again. She leaves. On the drive back, the recorder on the passenger seat clicks twice like it's being picked up and set down, though the car never hits a bump. At home, she puts the folder on her kitchen table and stares at the Polaroid until the white of the flash feels like noise. 3 nights later, her phone vibrates on the nightstand at 3:03 a.m. No number, no message, just a recording delivered to her voicemail. When she presses play, she hears her own footsteps in a concrete hall, the scrape of a flashlight, a breath that isn't hers. And at the end, just before the recording cuts, 3 soft, hollow taps. Tap, tap, tap. She doesn't sleep after that. She writes an email to the state archives asking for access to eerie records. She drafts a request under the Freedom of Information Act. She prints the memo about door 6 and slides it into her plastic sleeve like something fragile. In the morning, she calls Frank, the old guard, the one with the knuckle habit. He answers on the 3rd ring, throat full of gravel, like someone dragged out of a bad dream. She tells him what she found. There is a long pause. Then he says, "You didn't answer it, did you?" "Answer what?" she asks, already knowing. "The knocking," he says. "You don't answer the knocking." The line crackles. She hears something over his shoulder. A radio? A television left low? No, a kitchen clock ticking. Regular as breath. "Frank," she says. "Who was he? The man they put in that room?" Silence again, except for the small sounds of a house at morning. Coffee dripping, a chair leg shifting. The world adjusting itself today. Finally, Frank says, "We wrote one name. He told us another. He said the paper name was for us. The real one was for later." Another swallow. Said if a place holds you long enough, it learns your name. Said it'll say it back when it needs you. And what did it need? Shannon asks. Frank doesn't answer. She hears his breath. 1, 2, 3. Then close to the phone, so close she can hear the wet of the word, he whispers, "Not yet." The line goes dead. That afternoon, Shannon returns to the prison with a county official and a code key borrowed from the courthouse. They sign the log. They go down the stairs together. The pat. H is still smooth. So smooth it looks like it was poured yesterday. There are no lines, no smears, no crescent prints. The official knocks once, light, embarrassed, and laughs when it echoes. "See," he says, turning to her. "Just a wall." Something on the other side knocks back. 3 very gentle taps. Tap, tap, tap. The official's face drains. He takes a step toward the wall, then stops like he remembered a rule too late. He looks at Shannon, a question forming and dying without air. Upstairs, the caretaker calls again, nervous now. "Everything okay?" The code key in Shannon's pocket vibrates, the same small buzzing hum as a phone when someone dials and hangs up before the first ring. Shannon reaches into her bag and pulls out the Polaroid. She holds it up, the flash-white rectangle in front of a grey perfect patch. "If there's nothing here," she says quietly, "why does it keep saying hello?" The official doesn't answer. The recorder in her pocket picks up one more sound. Soft metal moving a fraction like a bolt easing under paint. And then the lights down there go out. Not a pop, not a flicker, just absence. The dark that comes is not total, it's the kind of dark that has a shape to it, like felt laid over a table, hiding the grain, but not the corners. "Back up the stairs," Shannon says, steady, practical, the voice of someone who has learned how to leave. The official's shoulder brushes the wall as he turns. He flinches. On his sleeve. When they reach the top and the caretaker finds the breaker and the fluorescents stutter back to life, there's a streak of fine-grey dust. And in it, 3 half-moons. Like something pressed 3 fingers into his coat and let go. They don't report it as anything but a power irregularity. The memo goes into a folder stamped maintenance. The folder slides into a drawer. The drawer closes. That night, the recorder on Shan, Non's kitchen table, clicks itself on at 3:03 a.m. and records 3 minutes of air. On the last second of the last minute, the microphone catches a word that could be a breath or could be a name. It is not hers. Outside in the quiet hour before morning, someone, something, taps politely on a locked door that doesn't exist anymore. Tap, tap, tap. And then the handle turns. They called it an abandoned site, but that was a lie. Nothing about Briar Hollow Penitentiary was abandoned. The state hadn't touched the place in over 40 years. True. But cameras still watched its fences, motion sensors still hummed beneath the ivy, and the occasional drone circled overhead like a hawk that hadn't decided whether to strike. Whatever was inside, the government hadn't forgotten. They were just hoping the rest of the world had. But the world hadn't. In 2022, a small documentary team, 3 graduate students and a freelance journalist, set out to make a film about forgotten prisons in America. They got permits for 6 locations. Briar Hollow wasn't one of them. But curiosity is a powerful thing. And curiosity is what brought them to the service road, just beyond the posted perimeter fence one cold November night, their cameras rolling, their breath clouding the air. The footage recovered from that night is grainy, but clear enough to show their faces. Nervous smiles, jokes that didn't quite land. One of them, a tall kid named Ryan, points toward a shape in the hill, a slab of concrete, half buried under moss and vines. "Door 6, he says into the camera. "We found it. It isn't supposed to exist. No map mentions it. No blueprint includes it. And yet there it is. A rusted steel hatch set into the earth, welded shut long ago and forgotten by everyone except those who swore they'd heard tapping from underneath." Ryan touches the cold metal and laughs nervously. Feels like it's waiting. They don't break the seal. They don't have to. The concrete around the door is cracked in two thin lines, just wide enough to show the seam of an old hinge beneath. Someone, or something has worked at it from the other side. One of the students places a microphone against the metal. The audio later analysed from that recording shows almost nothing, except for 3 faint, deliberate knocks. Tap, tap, tap. The camera shakes. Someone swears. Someone else says it's just pipes. They all laugh a little too loud. They decide to leave. But before they do, Ryan leans close to the door and whispers, "If someone's in there, we hear you." The knocking stops. And then, from deep below us, too far down for any pipe, too measured for any echo, a voice whispers back. One word, too soft to pass, too heavy to forget. The footage ends there. The next frames, shot seconds later, are a blur of light and motion, like the camera was dropped mid-run. A final flash catches 3 crescent shapes pressed into the inside of the cracked seam, the size of fingertips. Then nothing. The documentary was never released. The team never returned to campus. Officially, they ceased production due to legal issues. Unofficially, no one heard from 2 of them again. Ryan's car was found abandoned 5 miles from the prison gate, doors unlocked, battery dead, headlights still on. His phone was inside. At 3:03 a.m. that night, it had recorded a 3-minute voicemail, steady breathing, and 3 hollow knocks. Tap, 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 the state called it trespassing and sealed the area again. New concrete, new warnings. But the locals say the tapping never stopped. Hikers in the woods near Briar Hollow report feeling vibrations in the ground beneath their feet. Hunters say their dogs refuse to walk past a certain ridge, whining and pulling at their leashes. One man swears he heard someone whisper his name, even though no one had ever spoken it aloud there before. The whispers always come in 3s, always just after 3 a.m., always closer than you think. Today, Briar Hollow is a forbidden place, a ruin wrapped in fences and legal notices. But the truth hasn't been buried as deep as the state hopes. Retired officers speak in hushed tones about the man they couldn't execute. A former warden once told a journalist off the record that there's a room below the prison that was never meant to be opened again, and in one long forgotten archive box, there's a handwritten note, unsigned and undated, found tucked behind a logbook. It reads, "Some doors do not open from our side. They open when they're ready, and when they do not close again." Whether Thomas Hale is still down there, or whatever he became after the executions failed, no one knows. The state insists the cell was sealed, the case forgotten. But they never explained why no demolition crews will touch that part of the prison, or why anyone who's been inside refuses to go back a second time. What is certain is this: something is still beneath Briar Hollow. Something that counts in 3s. Something that remembers names. Something that was never meant to leave, and maybe never did. And if one night you find yourself on a lonely road in Oklahoma, and the ground beneath your feet starts to throb with a steady rhythm, tap, 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 don't knock back, don't answer, just walk away. Because some prisons hold the guilty, and some prisons hold what should never ever be free. And if that door ever opens again, God help whoever's standing in front of it.